Massive show today here in the Freedom Hut. Vice President of the United States Mike Pence joins to talk COVID response, law and order, mail-in voting. We'll also have the number 2 at the Department of Homeland Security, Ken Cuccinelli, on to speak about the Portland riots and the deployment of federal agents. Plus, Dr. Fauci wants you to wear goggles now, and Antifa not sending us their best. Coming up. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you here. As advertised, we have a just incredible lineup today. You know that this show is not one where I use and rely on guests a lot. I feel like I'm jealously guarding my time with you here on the airwaves. I want to make sure that's the best show every day, and I like to do most of the analysis on my own. But today, you know, when the number 2 leader of the free world and the number 2 at the Department of Homeland Security wants to weigh in on something, we're going to let them weigh in. So, dude, stick around for that. That's coming up in just a few moments. We'll hear from Vice President Pence and then Ken Cuccinelli about those riots. I wanted to start today, though, before we get into those very important policy interviews, as we're in this difficult period in America. We've got an election coming up. We've got all kinds of strife out there. I want to start in a different place for a moment. You know, the news broke this morning that former GOP presidential candidate Herman Cain died from COVID-19. And this is very sad for his family. I only briefly met Herman Cain one time, but he was clearly a very successful guy, very, very gregarious, and somebody who was at one point a serious contender for the GOP nomination. And I just got to tell you, I was hoping as I saw this, because he's the first major political figure we've seen, I was hoping as I saw this, that at least there would be some limits on who would be so grotesque and so morally abhorrent that they would effectively celebrate this. But I'm sorry to tell you that even blue checks, even official journos and commentators, one-time presidential candidate Evan McMullin among them, were saying that basically he got what he deserved because he was a skeptic about the necessity for wearing masks, that he put other lives in danger, and therefore him losing his life. I even saw blue checks saying to me that this was justified, and that he got what he deserved. This is appalling, as you know, and you might be thinking, Buck, why are we spending our time on this? You have to remember what has happened to the other side. When I tell you that Democrats have lost it, that it is now a morally decrepit political party, that it has lost its way, and that key and core values in American society, things that we're all supposed to be able to agree on, are no longer held by the left. They dispense with them as needed in their pursuit of political power. I'm not exaggerating. I would be every bit as critical of anyone on the right celebrating or in any way just being so grotesque, so vicious about a Democrat passing away from anything, COVID-19 or any other virus. You know, our dignity and our decency are two things that no one else can take from us. We can only give that away. And it's unfortunate to see, but it's real. The left has en masse, collectively, and as many individuals. I can't say that every one of them is guilty of this, but this is now the mainstream of their thinking, is this level of immoral and just really pitiful discourse. They're a disgrace. I can run out of words quickly here. I would like to use salty language in this discussion, but of course I can't. It's a family show. But that's what I think of when I see this. We are in the midst of a pandemic. We're trying to do the best we can as a country to get through it. There's a lot of politics around this now. There have been for months. There has been a huge political push to make this Donald Trump's fault, to say that it's like he's the reason we have this virus. But I would like to think that at the end of the day, we all understand human suffering and have some sympathy for each other. that we can be sympathetic to our fellow human beings, sympathetic to our fellow Americans. It's not what you see. It's not what's being shared right now. And this is from, just so you understand this, I'm not just, here's Anna Navarro, who I have said before, and so I'll repeat this. I think she is one of the dumbest. She may be the dumbest political analyst on TV and not a nice person. So that's also why, if you're like, Buck, you usually don't go ad hominem. Yeah, I've dealt with her before. She's a nasty, stupid person. And she responded right away when Herman Cain had just the news had come out that he died. Herman Cain, this is her quote. Herman Cain thought COVID was a hoax, scoffed at wearing a mask, died of COVID. Bill Montgomery, co-founder of pro-Trump Turning Point USA, scoffed at the virus, died of COVID. Representative Louis Gohmert refused to wear a mask, has COVID. See a pattern? COVID doesn't care about partisanship. She's abjectly disgusting. CNN and ABC pay her a lot of money to be a moron on television. She has a big following. She has, let me see here, 1.4 million Twitter followers. I don't know why anyone would follow her other than to mock her. She's an absolute ignoramus. And she's not the only one that did this as well. You also have, as I mentioned, and I won't even go into some of the other, well, actually, maybe I will. Maybe I will, because I think you need to understand this is not isolated. This is opinion that is widespread on the left. If you believe that we should have our basic and individual freedoms, and then something happens to you from COVID or a loved one, they will celebrate like a bunch of savages. They will celebrate when you or a loved one dies. That's how the Democrats play the political game these days. And now these are not randoms in the comment section. Some guy named blue check named Peter Ames Carlin. Where was the human decency in CAIN urging others not to take COVID seriously? He actively encouraged people to behave in a way that could kill them. Then it killed him. He deserved it. These are blue checks. I want to be very clear. These are people who have followings. These are people who are treated with respect and treated as though they're voices that should be listened to by Democrats on the left. Evan McMullen, one-time GOP. The guy's the most disgraceful fraud, single-handedly, dramatically damaging the brand of former CIA. I can tell you that. I mean, it doesn't get you as far as it used to because they say, well, Evan McMullen did it. Yeah, it's true. Evan McMullen wrote this. Herman Cain was hospitalized for coronavirus 2 weeks after he attended Trump's Tulsa rally without a face mask. He's the first senior casualty of the science denial Trump cult. The question is whether we can wake others up. I mean, what a, you absolute moron. 150,000 people have died from this virus. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them were wearing masks and staying home. Was it their fault too? You moron. These people are sick. I mean, they're deranged. There's something wrong with them. There's something corrupted inside of them. You'd say, oh, Buck, I mean, how dumb can they really be? Look at how they've been elevated in society. Wisdom is a form of intelligence. Morality is a form of intelligence. It's really not possible. I don't think it's fair to call somebody smart when all they do is make bad decisions and see things the wrong way. I don't care what they got on their SATs or whatever. It doesn't matter. Plus, who knows what any of these people got on their SATs? I mean, Evan McMullen, Anna Navarro. I'd be very curious. Nonetheless, here we are. I bring this up for one reason, really, and two reasons. One is just because it makes me really angry, and two, we need to understand what we are up against in this election cycle. The prominent voices on the left, the people that are advocating for Joe Biden, who is a laughable presidential choice, always has been. He tried to be the president before so many times. He's been running for president effectively for decades. And even Democrats were like, this guy's a joke and a loser. But now they got nothing else. So this is what they do. But I bring this up because I want you to understand, as I sit here and talk to you all across the country and around the world, we try to solve problems, and we also treat people with decency. And I want the best for my fellow Americans and my fellow human beings always. Always. That's the first principle of this show. And you have to remember what the other side is all about. Because as we look to motivate ourselves to continue this fight, I know the news right now is just getting you down. People that I know who are ardent Trump supporters, who are conservatives, who are Republicans, they feel so beat down, they just want it to stop. And I feel that way sometimes, too. I'll tell you, I have days now where I say, how much more of this lockdown and authoritarian craziness and the stupidity of these riots and the pretense that this was about one man's death and all this stuff that's going on, and the market's still shaky and all the things that are happening that's negative, millions of people without jobs, millions of businesses lost. You got to steel your courage, my friends. You got to stay in this fight. We need the good people, the decent people, to have their voices heard and to know that they've got to vote. They've got to get others to vote. We've got to continue on, because if nothing else, you know that doing the opposite politically of what these lunatic leftists want is better for the country. It's better for all of us, including the lunatic leftists, the loony leftists. Disgraceful stuff today about Herman Cain, but it just shows us who the other side really is and what they're all about. And that's not something we should ever forget, because it is time to be wartime conservatives. Right now, today, get ready for it, because the other side is not going to give you any quarter, any mercy.
Bill O'Reilly here, and I need your help. Millions of Americans who believe that the USA is a noble nation are furious about what they're seeing in the streets. They're angry about anarchy being enabled by a dishonest media that is promoting hatred toward America. That's why we launched the Stand Up for Your Country campaign on BillO'Reilly.com. I knew it was going to be big. I didn't know it was going to be this big. We've had hundreds of thousands of signups, and we are flooding the zone with new stickers. Folks love these stickers. But most importantly, we have a philosophy. America is a good country, and we are going to prove that to you night after night. We hope you'll become a premium member on BillO'Reilly.com so you can access everything we do and join the campaign. But if you don't want to do that, just come on in and read what we have. Stand up for your country, because if you do not, we're going to lose it. Check out BillO'Reilly.com and join the campaign.
What happened in Benghazi was a tragedy. In 2012, 4 brave Americans, including our ambassador, were killed in a terrorist attack. 8 congressional committees over the next 4 years investigated every aspect of Benghazi, and not one of them found that I had done anything wrong. Not one of them found that I had deliberately misled the American people. But I don't doubt that the Republicans will use this, and they'll attack whoever is Joe Biden's choice to be his vice president. But let's be honest about what this is. This is dishonest, and it's a distraction. This is not on the level. This is meant to attack and distract and deflect. And the main thing, Joy, that they're trying to distract from, whether they're attacking me or somebody else, is the horrific reality that under Donald Trump's watch, 150,000 Americans have died from coronavirus.
So there you have the likely VP pick that, at least some are saying likely, in the top tier. Susan Rice, Kamala Harris, a couple of other picks. Sometimes Elizabeth Warren gets put in the mix too, but I think it's clear the Democrats will insist upon a female minority as the vice presidential choice. And Biden's already said he's not going to run for a second term. So the vice president is effectively a launch pad, more so than usual, for the presidency if Biden were to win. Susan Rice just wants you to know that she's still an unrepentant liar. You know, he's talking about congressional committees. I don't care. We all saw her go on the Sunday shows after Benghazi. And because it was in the height of the election season, it was September of 2012, she went on TV and said that we thought it was caused by a video, which they knew it wasn't. but that was the delay tactic. Remember that propagandists understand the need sometimes just to slow down a certain recognition or certain reality. They don't have to lie about something forever. They just have to work within the news cycle. They just have to give it a little bit of time, wait for something to pass. People will become less upset. They won't remember. So that's why the lie that she told was so pernicious. But also remember that this is what you're going to hear from every Democrat between now and Election Day. 150,000 Americans have died on Trump's watch. To this, I want to say, what is the standard that they expect in this country? We look at our European counterparts, and the U.S. has a better per capita rate of dealing with this disease than any country of comparable size, with the possible exception of Germany. The UK, Italy, Spain, France, all worse when it comes to COVID-19 deaths. Do they all have science-denying, incompetent administrations? Of course not. But Susan Rice she's just mendacious. I mean, she doesn't care. She will lie, and she may, in fact, be the vice president that Biden picks, and that means she's going to be somebody that the entire media just will do anything to prop up and pretend that she's fantastic. She also went out to say that they handed over a great playbook. This was amazing. A great playbook to Trump. Play clip 5.
Well, Sonny, yes, everybody who knew anything about national security, global health, understood that a pandemic was inevitable. I write about it in my book that we were just talking about briefly at the outset. We prepared the incoming administration with a Pandemic for Dummies playbook and a tabletop exercise and so many other briefings. So the fault here, the tragic loss of 150,000 Americans and counting, is on Donald Trump and his gross mishandling of this pandemic.
They never say what he was supposed to do that he didn't do. Just remember this. It's always about, oh, he said this. Oh, he said that. What was the president of the United States supposed to do that was going to prevent? And how many deaths do we think a Democrat president would have had? Does anyone ever give that? How many deaths would have been? The answer is, and this is why the president retweeted this when I was up on bucksexton.com, it was quoting me, a story quoting me on our site. No matter what Trump did, they were going to say, if it was 50,000 dead, they'd say those are 50,000 deaths. That's as many people as died in Vietnam. Trump's responsible for every one of their deaths. It's 150,000. We were told in the early stages, you'll recall, that this was looking like it was going to be 250,000 to over 1 million. That's what we were told. I remember those models. And that's how they got us to, okay, sit down, be quiet, do what they're telling you to do. Do this lockdown. 15 days to stop the spread. We're now at a much higher level to stop the spread. I still can't believe we're being evicted from our home that we didn't sell. That's what Deborah said when she found out that she was the victim of home title theft, which is a crime that can actually cost you your home. Here's how it works. The bad guys find your information online, and then they forge your signature stating that you sold your home to them. Then you don't find out about this until either you get an eviction notice or you can get bills in the mail based on money that you never borrowed. Home title theft is an increasing crime, especially while everyone's at home on lockdown. You've got to take the precautions necessary to defend yourself. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. They're the only people I trust to put a virtual barrier online around your home's title. Go to HomeTitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim and don't even know it. Use code BUCK and you'll get 30 free days of protection. Only, though, if you go to HomeTitleLock.com. Again, that's HomeTitleLock.com.
But there has been another cost that we've seen, particularly in high schools. We're seeing, sadly, far greater suicides now than we are deaths from COVID. We're seeing far greater deaths from drug overdose that are above excess that we had as background than we are seeing deaths from COVID.
Those are numbers. Those are statistics you're not going to hear in a lot of places right now. The agenda is being implemented. The messaging of the left is all that matters. The mainstream media, the Democrat Party, that's the plan. That's what they're going to do. They're going to stay on it. They're certainly not going to tell you that, as Alex Berenson shared today, one of the few voices out there who's willing to question the orthodoxy of the consensus of the experts on COVID-19, that we are on track right now to have more people in the United States under 35 die from excess murders compared to last year than from COVID-19. That's from Alex Berenson today. You have now more and more people dying from drug overdoses, from suicide. They are wrecking our country. They are wrecking our economy. They are taking away our freedom. And they do so with almost a glee, like we deserve this, like we all deserve this, because, oh, that's right, it's the only way the left thinks that we can ever make amends for our sin, the sin of electing Donald Trump. To purge ourselves of that evil. There are a lot of leftists who seem to think that the misery we are inflicting on ourselves, I'm not just talking about the virus, I'm saying the response to the virus, has to be absolutely as severe as possible. Now we have an even crazier moment in time with the school shutdown issue. Schools should be open. There's no good faith argument that schools should be closed this fall. They are keeping schools closed because of politics. And if you were wondering about that, now you have teachers who aren't only through the teachers' unions, right? It's all the teachers' unions. They just want to teach. Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, Randy Weingarten going on TV today. Oh, the teachers just want to teach. It's about families and assisting families and kids, and it's all bull. It's all just talking points. Teachers' unions exist for the benefit of the adults in them and the Democrat Party that supports them, and vice versa. That's it. Teachers' unions are not concerned. They don't go out there, how do we help the kids more? No, they want to make sure they get maximum pay, minimum work, minimum accountability for public school teachers across the country, and maximum donations for Democrats. That's what's actually happening. And now we see this more because they are arguing, they are debating over whether they even should have to do full at-home virtual teaching. Oh, now they got a problem with virtual teaching, if you were wondering where this is all heading. What last month we say is the absurdity that the last four next, this month is the absurdity they're asking for, and so it keeps happening with all matters here on COVID-19, the pandemic, the lockdown. I've been telling you for quite some time here that your eyes are a risk as well for this virus, and that we can't even begin to, we can't use our powers of perception. We certainly can't visualize, can't even begin to comprehend how small viral particles in the air are. Can't even see it under a microscope. Electron microscope, less than 1 micron in size, but they're aerosolized, which means they are in the air, right? They are floating in the air around you. And the same way that, there's other viruses and bacteria and particles, and it's all in the air around you. And they say, oh, we'll put a cloth over your mouth. And I've talked to you a million times about that. And look, I'm not an anti-masker in all situations, just because I think there is some at a minimum, and I'm not saying there's no medical benefit, but there's some placebo benefit. We're used to seeing doctors wear masks. You're used to seeing hospital staff wear masks. Your dentist. I mean, people do this, and if nothing else, it kind of shields you a little bit from their breath. And it just, we have a psychological connection to this. Oh, I'm getting treated by medical professionals. They're wearing masks. And I think that your mindset when you're getting treatment by doctors of any kind is also important. So there's certainly a placebo benefit that I can see from it in general. And you don't want people to spit on you. And viral load would matter from if you were in close contact and someone did have actual particles that they were spitting out at you as they're talking to you, right? That might make viral load less. So again, I'm not somebody who says masks do nothing. I don't I think that would be silly. But I think that we're overstating the value of them and then pretending that it's some huge moral choice whether or not to wear a mask, because wearing a mask outside, as we've discussed, is, and people, we understand this now, right? We've talked about that enough. Okay, fine. But then there's the eyes. And I've said, you really, if you see the true precautionary measures that are taken, if you see the real stuff that has to be done when it comes to masks and it comes to the PPE that are in place for medical personnel when they're dealing with highly dangerous pathogens, they look like they're going into a nuclear reactor, right? They got gloves, they got head to toe covering, airtight. They've got a mask on. They've got goggles. They've got eye protection on, too. Why is that? Well, because your eyes are a mucosal membrane, and virus can go in your eyes. I knew they were going to do this, but they finally come out and said that if you wear goggles, if you don't wear goggles, you're at risk. You're at greater risk. So they're not going to mandate it yet, but they are going to recommend maybe it's time you put on some goggles. Play clip 1.
I mean, if you really want perfect protection of your mucosal surfaces, just for your audience, Jen, as you very well know, you have mucosa in the nose, mucosa in the mouth, but you also have mucosa in the eye. And that's one of the things that, theoretically, you should protect all the mucosal surfaces. So if you have goggles or an eye shield, you should use it. I mean, it's not universally recommended, but if you really want to be complete, you should probably use it if you can. It's just that it's so easy for people to just make a cloth mask.
So it's easy, so do it. But also, you're not really protected. But I'm not going to tell you got to be fully protected by doing the other thing. But it's easy. That's what they're telling me. My friends, what was suggested became mandatory in a very short period of time. In fact, what was rejected became mandatory, what was rejected became suggested, became mandatory with masks. Goggles, I know you say right now, Buck, no way. Yeah, but think about this. It's bad enough that everyone has to walk around masked up all the time. It's a constant reminder, just from the political angle, a constant reminder of the duress of the country. It's almost like we walk around and American flags everywhere are upside down, right? You're seeing America is in a bad place because of the mask. That's why Democrats love this. That's why there's this cult of the mask that they've embraced. That's why you see people driving alone in their cars with a mask on. What are they doing? How long before you start seeing goggles? Now goggles are even more intrusive. I get that. And I don't know if they're going to make goggles mandatory. But how long do you think it's going to be before you see Democrats walking around with goggles on? I think it's going to be very soon. I think you'll see this. It's also a reminder that we could play this game all day. How much protection do you really want? How hard is it for you to wear goggles? Why won't you take the necessary protections and wear goggles? Why not? Well, why are you being reckless? This is what they'll say. This is what people will begin to claim. And this is, we should just all stay home, right? We should all lock ourselves in and never go outside because this virus is out there. Even though if you're under the age of 55, your chances from dying of this virus, if you get it, are in the 1 in tens of thousands. I don't know the exact number, but it's very, very, very small. 1 in 3 people who have died from COVID-19 in the U.S. are over 80. So what does that tell us? There is a very high, very real risk to people over 80. We need to make sure they are protected. We need to take the measures to make sure that they are okay and safe from COVID. For everybody else, it is a manageable risk. That doesn't mean no risk. It doesn't mean it's a hoax and all this other stupid stuff that Democrats claim Republicans believe. It is manageable.
I'm a big believer that for young children, The benefits in almost every location, particularly if you can protect the teachers well, the benefits outweigh the costs. As you get up to age like 13 and higher, then you'll have to look at your locale to decide what you'll do with high schools. And if they're not in, then you have to put massive effort into trying to get there to be continued learning online. You know, our foundation has revamped our education work to really jump in and help out, get those online capabilities up, make sure that minority students and low-income students aren't suffering the most throughout all of this. But it's a very tough set of trade-offs that everyone's going through.
Bill Gates, formerly the richest man in the world, now one of the richest. Bill Gates Foundation, very much involved in a lot of the virus research and pandemic preparation, all this stuff. Big funder of the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, which was the data set used in the early days of the pandemic to tell us how bad this was going to be. Bill Gates saying, no, kids should be in school. So let's understand the science is with kids being in school. Everyone understands now kids should be in school. Schools should be open. Democrats don't want to open schools. Why? Why? What is the basis for this? It's politics, friends. Couldn't be any more clear. It's the same basis that led them to be silent during the protests of thousands and thousands of people across the country when they weren't allowing funerals, when they weren't allowing people to open their businesses, to go to the gym. Appalling. Absolutely, absolutely appalling. And then we also have now, if you will, for a moment, I just wanted to talk about a little more about the hearing yesterday on Capitol Hill, where you had the four biggest tech CEOs in the world, Amazon, Google, Facebook, and who am I forgetting in this? Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Apple. There we go. Which are very different companies and business models. Interesting. They're just the titans. I mean, they're the four biggest ones. And they had some interesting exchanges. I will say that, as an aside, Jeff Bezos's personal story was much more interesting, and I'm going to say much more inspiring than I even knew beforehand. Talking about what he went through and what his mother went through, and God bless her. A young mother who brought her child to school so she could finish high school and everything else. Really, a really amazing story. Look, friends, we got to be able always to put aside politics when necessary. That's not a political thing. It's just an inspiring story, and it was interesting to hear him tell it. But the part of this that gets so much attention, there's the business model issue, the antitrust component of this, and then there's the political bias issue, which these are related issues, but there's also a separation of them. Here's Congressman Jim Jordan talking about that point of bias. Play 4.
I'll just cut to the chase. Big tech's out to get conservatives. That's not a suspicion. That's not a hunch. That's a fact. July 20th, 2020, Google removes the homepages of Breitbart and the Daily Caller. Just last night, we learned Google has censored Breitbart so much traffic has declined 99%. June 16th, 2020, Google threatens to demonetize and ban the Federalist. April 19th, 2020, Google and YouTube announce a policy censoring the content that conflicts with recommendations of the World Health Organization. Now think about that. The World Health Organization, the organization that lied to us, the organization that shilled for China. And if you contradict something they say, they can say whatever they want. They can lie for China. They can shill for China. You say something against them, you get censored. June 29th, 2020, Amazon bans President Trump's account on Twitch after he raises concerns about defunding the police. June 4th, 2020, Amazon bans a book critical of the coronavirus lockdowns written by a conservative commentator. May 27th, 2020, Amazon Smile won't let you give to the Family Research Council and the Alliance Defense Fund, but you can give to Planned Parenthood.
This seems pretty compelling, right? Jim Jordan does the fast-talking, no-jacket Jim Jordan strikes again. What are the leftists, what do the libs say in response to this?
Well, Brian Stelter has some thoughts that he wants to share with you.
Play 16.
And then there's this parallel track where you have some Republican lawmakers accusing these companies of anti-conservative bias and trying to get them to make certain commitments and promises. Let's just all remember, the claims about bias in tech platforms are anecdotal, not backed up by data or science. These are stories, not statistics, but we're probably going to hear more of that from the Republicans in the coming minutes.
It's not anecdotal when the stories all tell the same story and they're all on one side. If I can think of 10 conservative websites, you complete moron. I mean, I'm actually glad that Brian Stelter's over at CNN because it's a reminder that you should never take CNN seriously and that CNN executives are also a joke. So there's that. But to say that this is anecdotal, all of the data points are on one side. There's a graph, right? All the data points on one side. Conservative websites getting pulled. Never happens to liberal websites. That's more than anecdotal, isn't it? What data set would he want to see here? An email between Google executives? Yes, we're going to ban conservative sites. We've kind of heard that too. Very obvious what the political equivalence is that they're trying to do here, right? It's very, very clear that they're saying, oh, well, you know, it happens all. No, it does not happen on both sides. It absolutely does not. But the hearing yesterday, as I told you, a lot of people spent a lot of time on this one. It is very unlikely that any of this will change. Very unlikely that you'll see the tech oligarchs change the way their companies work, change their opinions about things. And so what then becomes the answer, as I have been saying all along, I think the conservatives have to build platforms, or just people have to build platforms that are, as part of their mission, content neutral. And that is an ethos that is drilled into their employees, or else we're just going to keep going through this.